I pressed my face against the window of the coffee shop across from Sterling and Associates, watching employees stream into the sleek glass building that housed my dream job. 3 months of applications, 2 rounds of interviews, and a portfolio presentation that had left my hands shaking, all leading to this moment. My phone buzzed. Ms. Alvarez's name appeared on the screen. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Leah. Her voice was warm but professional. I have wonderful news. We'd like to offer you the junior graphic designer position. I nearly dropped my coffee. Oh my God, really? Really? The team was impressed with your portfolio, especially your rebranding concept for the nonprofit. You bring exactly the fresh perspective we need. She paused. I know the salary isn't huge, $45,000 to start, but there's significant room for growth and we offer excellent benefits. $45,000! More money than I'd ever made in my life. Enough to finally move out of my childhood bedroom, maybe even start paying off my student loans. When would you need an answer? I asked, trying to sound professional while internally celebrating. Take the weekend to think it over. We'd like you to start Monday if you're interested. After hanging up, I sat in the coffee shop for 20 minutes, grinning like an idiot. Customers probably thought I was having some kind of breakdown, but I didn't care. This was it. My chance to prove that 4 years of design school and 6 months of unpaid internships had been worth it. I called Ethan first. Holy shit, Leah! He shouted so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. I knew it. I told you they'd be crazy not to hire you. I can't believe it's real. I'm going to work there. In that building. We're celebrating tonight, my treat, and don't you dare say you can't afford it. This is on me. The drive home felt different. Instead of the usual dread that accompanied pulling into our cramped driveway, I felt light, optimistic, like maybe all those nights spent perfecting design projects while my mom complained about the cost of my art supplies had actually meant something. Mom was in the kitchen when I walked in, stirring something that smelled like canned soup and disappointment. How was the job thing? She asked without looking up. I got it, I said, setting my portfolio case by the door. They offered me the position. Really? How much? $45,000 to start, plus benefits. She whistled low. That's more than I make at the hospital. Mom worked as a billing clerk, a job she'd taken after Dad left and that she'd never quite forgiven herself for settling into. When do you start? Monday, if I take it. If you take it? Mom's eyebrows shot up. Leah, honey, jobs like this don't come around every day. I know, I just want to make sure I'm ready. What I really wanted was to savor this feeling a little longer, the feeling of being wanted, of having something that was entirely mine. We ate dinner on the couch, watching a rerun of some cooking show, while I mentally decorated the apartment I'd finally be able to afford. Nothing fancy, just a studio maybe, somewhere with good light for my drawing table and enough space to spread out my design projects without having to clear them away for family dinners. Your cousin Janelle called today, Mom said during a commercial break. My stomach tightened involuntarily. Janelle had a way of appearing in our lives like a storm system, sudden, chaotic, and leaving damage in her wake. What did she want? She's having a rough time again. Lost another job last week. Mom's voice took on that careful tone she used when she was about to ask me to do something I wouldn't want to do. She's really struggling, Leah. You know how hard things have been for her since Uncle Ray left. Uncle Ray had left when Janelle was 12. That was 11 years ago. But Mom still talked about it like it had happened yesterday, like it explained every bad decision Janelle had made since. That's too bad, I said, hoping my tone conveyed appropriate sympathy while also signaling that I didn't want to get involved. She was asking about your job search, how it's been going. Why? Mom muted the TV and turned to face me fully. She's been thinking about trying to get into something creative. You know, she's always been artistic. Janelle's artistic phase had lasted exactly 3 weeks in high school and had consisted mainly of buying expensive art supplies that she'd used twice before moving on to her next obsession. "Mom," I said carefully, "what exactly did you tell her?" "Just that you've been working really hard, going on interviews. I didn't mention anything specific." Relief flooded through me. At least Janelle didn't know about Sterling and Associates. This job was mine. My opportunity, my future. For once, I had something that existed completely separate from family drama and guilt trips. "Good," I said. "I'd rather keep my job stuff private until I know what I'm doing." Mom nodded, but something in her expression made me uneasy. "Of course, honey. This is your thing." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling of the room I'd occupied for 23 years. The glow-in-the-dark stars I'd stuck up there in middle school had long since lost their charge, but I could still make out their faded shapes in the darkness. By next month, I'd be staring at a different ceiling, in a different room, in a life that was finally completely mine. My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Still can't believe my best friend is going to be a fancy graphic designer. So proud of you." I smiled and typed back, "Not fancy yet, but getting there." Tomorrow I'd call Miss Alvarez and officially accept the position. Tomorrow I'd start planning my escape from this bedroom, this house, this version of myself that always came second to everyone else's needs. Tomorrow, my real life would begin. I had no idea that by tomorrow night, my dream job would belong to someone else. I woke up Saturday morning with the kind of energy that comes from having a secret that's about to change everything. The acceptance call to Miss Alvarez was scheduled for 10 a.m. I'd practiced what I'd say about 5 times before falling asleep. But when I came downstairs, I found Mom and Janelle sitting at our kitchen table, both looking serious in a way that immediately put me on edge. "Leia, honey," Mom said, "Janelle has something she wants to talk to you about." Janelle looked up at me with those big brown eyes that had been getting her out of trouble since we were kids. She was wearing what I recognized as her interview outfit. A blazer she'd borrowed from Mom and black pants that were slightly too tight. Her makeup was perfect, her hair styled in a way that probably took an hour. "Hey, cuz," she said, her voice softer than usual. "Thanks for letting me crash here last night." I looked at Mom, who hadn't mentioned anything about Janelle staying over. "No problem," I said automatically, though it actually was a problem because Janelle's one-night stays had a way of stretching in 2 weeks. "Coffee?" Mom asked, already pouring me a cup. She was using her best mugs, the ones that usually only came out for holidays or when she was trying to soften me up for something. "I was telling Janelle about your job interview," Mom continued, setting the coffee in front of me. "She's so excited for you." Janelle nodded enthusiastically. "That's so amazing, Leia. You've always been the talented one in the family." The compliment felt off somehow, like she was setting up for something. Janelle's praise always came with strings attached. "Thanks," I said carefully. "I was actually hoping to ask you about it. The job, I mean. What kind of company is it?" I glanced at Mom, who was suddenly very interested in organizing the already organized spice rack. "It's a creative agency." "Why?" "I've been thinking about my future, trying to figure out what I really want to do with my life. And I realized that I've always been drawn to creative work. Design, marketing, that kind of thing." My stomach started to sink. "That's great. The thing is," Janelle said, leaning forward, "I don't have the same educational background you do. I mean, you went to school for this stuff. You have a portfolio and everything." "That's what school is."
"But school costs money I don't have right now. And with my track record," she laughed, but it sounded forced. "Let's just say most places aren't exactly lining up to hire me." Mom finally turned around from the spice rack. "Leah, honey, what Janelle is trying to say is that she was wondering if maybe you could help her get her foot in the door somewhere." "Like a referral?" I asked, though I was starting to suspect that wasn't what they meant. Janelle and Mom exchanged a look that confirmed my worst fears. Well, Janelle said slowly, I was actually wondering about your interview, the place that called you. The coffee cup felt slippery in my hands. What about it? Janelle has been doing some research on graphic design, Mom said, her voice taking on that persuasive tone she used when she wanted me to do something for the good of the family. She's been watching tutorials online, teaching herself programs. YouTube University, Janelle added with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'm a fast learner. I always have been. I stared at them both, trying to process what was happening. Are you suggesting Janelle apply for the same job? Not exactly, Mom said. I was thinking more about whether you might consider sharing the opportunity, Janelle said carefully. The words hung in the air like smoke. Sharing the opportunity. As if my months of applications and interviews were a family resource that could be divided up fairly. Janelle, I said slowly, they offered the job to me, not us, me. I know that, and I'm so proud of you, but think about it from their perspective. They need someone who can start immediately, right? Someone who doesn't have other options? You have other options, Mom added. You're young, educated, talented. You'll get other offers. Will I? The question came out sharper than I intended. Because I've been applying for jobs for 6 months. This is the first offer I've gotten. But you're different than Janelle, Mom said. You've got advantages she doesn't have. I looked at Janelle, who was nodding along with Mom's assessment. What advantages? We're the same age. We grew up in the same family. You went to college, Janelle said quietly. You had Mom supporting you through school. I had to figure things out on my own after graduation. That wasn't entirely true. Janelle had started college but dropped out after a year to move in with a boyfriend who promised to take care of everything. When that relationship imploded, she'd bounced between jobs and apartments and relationships, always landing back at Mom's house when things got bad. Janelle really needs this, Mom said. She needs stability, something to build on. You're strong enough to keep trying. Strong enough, as if my ability to handle disappointment was a reason to volunteer for it. I can't just give away my job offer. Not give away, Janelle said quickly. I would never ask you to do that. But maybe you could call them and explain that you've had a family situation come up, that you're not able to take the position right now. And then what? Then I could apply, with your recommendation. I stared at her. You want me to turn down my dream job so you can apply for it? I want us both to succeed, Janelle said. And right now, you're in a position to help me succeed. Someday, when I'm established, I'll be able to help you. The promise felt hollow. Janelle's track record of helping others was about as impressive as her track record of keeping jobs. I need to think about this, I said, standing up from the table. Of course, Mom said, but Leah, honey, don't think too long. Opportunities like this don't wait around forever. I went upstairs and closed my bedroom door, then immediately called Ethan. They want you to do what? He said after I'd explained the situation. Give up the job so Janelle can apply for it. Absolutely not. Tell me you're not actually considering this.
I was quiet for a long moment. Leah, Ethan's voice was firm, tell me you're not considering this. She's family, I said weakly. So are you. You're part of your family too. Why does helping her mean sacrificing yourself? It was a good question, one I'd been asking myself for years without ever finding a satisfactory answer. My mom thinks, your mom thinks you're strong enough to handle disappointment, so you should volunteer for it. That's not love, Leah. That's convenience. After hanging up with Ethan, I sat on my bed staring at my portfolio. 4 years of work, dozens of projects, countless late nights spent perfecting designs and learning software and building the skills that had gotten me this job. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Just think about it, honey. Family is all we really have. I looked around my childhood bedroom, at the desk where I'd done homework for 12 years, at the closet full of clothes I couldn't afford to replace, at the window that looked out onto the same street I'd been staring at my entire life. Maybe Mom was right. Maybe I was strong enough to handle this disappointment. Maybe I'd get another opportunity soon. But as I thought about calling Miss Alvarez on Monday morning to turn down the job, something cold and hard settled in my stomach. This wasn't about family. This was about convenience. It was easier for everyone if I was the one who sacrificed. It was always easier if I was the one who sacrificed. Sunday dinner had always been a sacred tradition in our house, but this Sunday felt different. Mom had made Janelle's favorite meal, chicken parmesan with garlic bread, and set the table with our good plates. Everything about the scene screamed, special occasion, except the occasion was me giving up my future. This smells incredible, Aunt Miriam. Janelle settled into the chair that had been mine for 23 years. She'd been staying with us for 3 days now, and somehow her temporary presence had started to feel permanent. I wanted to make something nice, Mom said, shooting me a meaningful look. We're celebrating. Celebrating what? I asked, though I was afraid I already knew. Your decision to help Janelle, Mom said, as if it was already settled. I think it's wonderful how you're putting family first. I haven't made any decision yet. Janelle's face fell in that practiced way she'd perfected over the years. Oh, I mean, when Aunt Miriam called me this morning, she said you'd agreed. I looked at Mom, who was suddenly very interested in serving salad. What exactly did you tell her? I told her that you were thinking about it seriously, which you are. Thinking about it and agreeing to it are different things. Janelle, can I be honest with you about something? I braced myself. Janelle's honesty usually came with a hefty emotional price tag. I'm scared. Really scared. I know I've made mistakes in the past, but I'm trying to change. This job could be my chance to prove that I'm not the screw-up everyone thinks I am. Nobody thinks you're a screw-up, Mom said automatically. Yes, they do. Janelle's voice was quiet, but firm. Uncle Ray thinks it. My mom thinks it. Sometimes I think it too. She looked directly at me. But you've never thought that, have you, Leah? You've always believed I could do better. It was masterfully done. Janelle had a gift for finding the exact words that would make you feel guilty for not giving her what she wanted. I do think you can do better, I said carefully, but I also think there are other ways to prove that. Like what? Waiting tables until some other opportunity maybe comes along someday? Janelle shook her head. I'm 23, Leah. I can't keep starting over. You're the same age I am, I pointed out.
But you have your degree, you have skills, you have options. Janelle's voice was getting more emotional. I dropped out of school to chase some stupid dream with a guy who dumped me 6 months later. I've been working retail and restaurant jobs ever since. This is my chance to break that cycle. Mom reached over and squeezed Janelle's hand. It's going to be okay, sweetheart. Is it though? Janelle wiped her eyes with her napkin. Because if I don't get this job, I don't know what I'm going to do. My rent is already 2 months behind. My car payment is overdue. I can't keep crashing on people's couches. I felt the familiar weight of family guilt settling on my shoulders. This was how it always worked. Janelle's problems became everyone's emergency, and somehow I was always the one expected to provide the solution. What about other jobs? Other agencies? I've looked, Janelle said, but they all want experience I don't have, or education I don't have, or portfolios I don't have. This is the only real opportunity I've seen where someone might be willing to take a chance on me. Because they're taking a chance on me, I said. Right, Janelle said, missing the point entirely. Because you recommended me, because they trust your judgment. Mom cleared her throat. Leah, honey, can I talk to you privately for a minute? We went into the kitchen, leaving Janelle at the dining room table looking small and defeated. I know this is hard, but look at her. Really look at her. She's drowning, Leah. So was I 6 months ago when I was sending out applications and getting rejection after rejection. But you pulled yourself out of it. You're resilient. Janelle,
Mom glanced toward the dining room. She's more fragile. She needs this chance more than you do. How do you know I don't need it just as much? Mom's expression softened. Because you're my daughter, and I know you. You're strong enough to handle disappointment. She's not. There it was again. The assumption that my strength was a reason to burden me with more weight, not less. What if I'm not as strong as you think I am? I asked. Then you'll get stronger, Mom said simply. That's what you do. That's who you are. I wanted to scream. I wanted to point out that maybe Janelle would get stronger too if people stopped rescuing her from the consequences of her choices. But I also knew that arguing with Mom about Janelle was like arguing with the ocean about being wet. Just think about it, Mom continued. One phone call tomorrow morning. You tell them you've had a family situation come up, then Janelle applies with your recommendation. Everyone wins. Except me. You'll find something else. Someone with your talent always does. When we returned to the dining room, Janelle was staring at her phone with tears in her eyes. What's wrong? Mom asked immediately. My landlord just texted, Janelle said, her voice barely above a whisper. He's starting eviction proceedings on Wednesday if I don't pay what I owe. She showed us the text message. The amount owed was $2,400, more than I made in a month at my current part-time job at the campus bookstore. Oh, honey, Mom said, sitting down beside Janelle. I don't know what I'm going to do, Janelle sobbed. I don't have that kind of money. I don't have anywhere else to go. I looked at Mom, who was rubbing Janelle's back and making soothing noises. I looked at Janelle, crying into her hands like her world was ending. I looked at the chicken parmesan getting cold on the table, at the good plates and the cloth napkins, and all the effort Mom had put into making this feel like a celebration. Okay, I heard myself say. I'll call them tomorrow. Janelle's head snapped up. Really? Really. The word felt like giving up, but I want your word that you'll take this seriously. No showing up late, no calling in sick for hangover, no drama. I promise you, Janelle said, grabbing my hands across the table. I swear to you, Lita, I will not screw this up. This is my chance to prove myself, and I'm not going to waste it.
Mom beamed at both of us. I'm so proud of you, Leah. This is what family is about, supporting each other. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling again. But this time, the feeling was completely different. Instead of anticipation and possibility, I felt hollow, scraped out, like I'd given away a piece of myself that I'd never get back. My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. How's the job situation? I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. Changed plans. Janelle is applying instead. The phone rang immediately. What the hell happened? Ethan's voice was sharp with disbelief. I told him about dinner, about Janelle's eviction notice, about Mom's speech about family and strength and doing the right thing. Leah, Ethan said when I finished, this is insane. You know that, right? Maybe, but it's done now. No, it's not. You haven't called them yet. You can still change your mind. I gave my word. To people who manipulated you into giving it. I was quiet for a long moment, listening to Ethan breathe on the other end of the line. I just want this to be over, I said finally. It's not going to be over, Ethan said. It's never going to be over as long as you keep letting them do this to you. After hanging up, I pulled out my phone and found Miss Alvarez's number. Tomorrow, I'd call her and explain that I couldn't take the position. I'd recommend Janelle and hope for the best. But as I looked at the contact information, I felt something shift inside me. A small voice, one I'd been ignoring for years, whispered that this was wrong, that I deserved the job I'd earned, that helping family didn't have to mean destroying myself. I closed my phone without making any decisions about tomorrow. Maybe that small voice would get louder overnight. Maybe I'd find the courage to listen to it. Or maybe I'd make the call and spend the rest of my life wondering what would have happened if I'd chosen myself for once. Either way, I knew that something fundamental had changed tonight. I just wasn't sure yet if it was for better or worse. Monday morning, I sat at the kitchen table with my phone, feeling like I was about to amputate my own limb.
Mom and Janelle watched me with expectant faces as I dialed Miss Alvarez's number. Leah, perfect timing. Are you calling to officially accept? The hope in her voice made my stomach lurch. Actually, Miss Alvarez, I've had a family emergency. I won't be able to accept the position. Silence. Then disappointment I could feel through the phone. Oh, I'm very sorry to hear that. Is everything all right? It will be. It's just something I need to handle. The lie tasted like ash. Actually, I wanted to ask about my cousin, Janelle Morrison. She's also in design and looking for opportunities. We'd review any application, but Leah, we offered this to you specifically because of your portfolio and interview. After hanging up, I felt hollow, scraped out, like I'd just pushed myself off a cliff for someone else's benefit. Janelle was already opening her laptop. I'm applying right now while it's fresh in her mind. I watched her struggle with the application, typing extensive experience in interior design and promotional materials to describe helping her ex-boyfriend make band flyers. Everyone embellishes their resume a little bit, she said when I suggested being more specific. I'm a fast learner. I can figure out whatever I need to know. Ethan found me staring at my bedroom wall that afternoon. You just gave away your dream job to someone who has no qualifications for it. She'll figure it out. What if she doesn't?
I didn't answer because I needed to believe this sacrifice would mean something. Thursday afternoon, Janelle burst through our front door like a small hurricane. I got it, she screamed, spinning around the living room. I got the job. Mom dropped her laundry and pulled Janelle into a huge hug while I stood on the stairs watching them celebrate my opportunity like it had always belonged to her. Miss Alvarez said my application was very impressive, Janelle said, wiping happy tears. I start Monday. That evening, Mom made a celebration dinner and invited neighbors to share the good news. Everyone kept talking about how proud they were of Janelle for landing such a great job and how wonderful it was that I'd helped make it happen. Your cousin is so lucky to have you looking out for her, Mrs. Rodriguez said to me. That's what family is for. I smiled and nodded while feeling completely hollow inside. Watching everyone celebrate Janelle's achievement, which was really my achievement that I'd given away, was harder than I'd expected. Later that night, Janelle knocked on my door. I know I've been kind of a mess, she said, sitting on my bed, but this job is going to be different. I'm going to be different. She looked around my room at the design books, portfolio cases, and inspiration boards. I can see how much this stuff means to you. I promise I'm going to take it seriously. I've been watching YouTube tutorials about Photoshop and InDesign. I even ordered design books online. After she left, I lay in bed feeling a mixture of hope and dread. Maybe Janelle really would rise to the occasion. Maybe this would be the thing that finally helped her find direction. Or maybe I just handed my future to someone who would destroy it. The call came Wednesday afternoon as I got home from my shift at the campus bookstore. Leah? Miss Alvarez's voice was tight with controlled anger. We need to talk. Your cousin is no longer employed with our agency. My stomach dropped. What happened? Janelle Morrison is possibly the most unprofessional person I've ever hired. 45 minutes late on her first day with no apology, spending her second day on personal phone calls, including an argument with her ex-boyfriend that half the office could hear, and today, calling in sick while posting Instagram stories of herself at the beach. I closed my eyes, wishing I could disappear. When I called to discuss her attendance, she said the job was not really what she expected, and she was thinking about exploring other opportunities anyway. Miss Alvarez continued, I have to ask, did you have any indication your cousin might not be suitable for this position? Because her work clearly shows she has no design training whatsoever. Her first assignment looked like it was made by someone who had never used design software before. I'm so sorry, I said, meaning it completely. I had no idea.
We hired her based on your recommendation, your reputation. And now we've wasted training time and had to explain to a client why their promotional materials look amateur. The weight crashed down on me. I hadn't just given away my job, I damaged my professional reputation before my career had even started. Unfortunately, we've already offered the position to our second choice candidate. But Leah, this situation doesn't reflect well on your judgment. I hope you'll be more careful about recommendations in the future. 20 minutes later, Janelle's car pulled into our driveway. She got out looking like she'd spent the day at a spa, not at the beach, playing hooky from my sacrificed job. "Hey," she said casually, "I guess you heard about the work thing? I heard you got fired." "I didn't get fired. It was a mutual decision. The job wasn't what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Something more creative. They had me making boring flyers. That's not really design." I stared at her, incredulous. "Janelle, you had the job for 3 days. Entry-level positions start with basic projects." "Whatever. It doesn't matter now." She shrugged like we were discussing a restaurant. "I'll find something else."
You were 45 minutes late on your first day. Traffic was terrible. You called in sick while posting beach photos. I needed a mental health day. Each excuse was more infuriating than the last. No acknowledgement of responsibility, no understanding of what her behavior had cost. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" My voice started rising. "It wasn't just a job, Janelle. It was my job, my opportunity, my future, and you destroyed it in 3 days." "I tried." "No, you didn't. You showed up late, made personal calls, called in sick to go to the beach. That's not trying, that's sabotage." Janelle's face crumpled into wounded innocence. "I can't believe you're being so mean. I'm going through a really hard time." "You're always going through a hard time, and somehow it's always everyone else's job to fix it." "I never asked you to do that. You offered." "I offered because Mom guilted me into it, because you manipulated me into feeling sorry for you." Tears flowed down her cheeks. "I wasn't manipulating anyone." "And I helped you, and you threw it away." I looked at her, really looked, for the first time in years. I saw someone who had learned that tears and excuses could get her whatever she wanted. Someone who had never faced consequences because there was always someone else willing to clean up her messes. "Now you figure it out yourself," I said. "I'm done." "Leah, please." "I'm done, Janelle. Done sacrificing my future for your convenience. Done being the family doormat." Inside, Mom was waiting with a concerned expression. I told her everything, the tardiness, the phone calls, the fake sick day. "I'm sure she'll learn from this," Mom said. "People make mistakes." "This wasn't a mistake, Mom. This was exactly who Janelle is. You convinced me to sacrifice my future for someone who was never going to take it seriously." "Leah, that's not..." "It is. And I'm done being the responsible one who gives up everything so Janelle can have another chance to prove she's not ready." For the first time in my life, I was angry enough to do something about it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed replaying every moment of the past week. The phone call with Miss Alvarez, Janelle's casual dismissal of destroying my opportunity, Mom's immediate pivot to damage control. By 3 a.m., I was sitting at my desk with my laptop open, doing something I should have done months ago, applying for every design job I could find. The process was different this time. Before, I'd been careful, selective, applying only to positions that seemed perfect fits. Now I applied to everything: junior designer roles, freelance gigs, internships that paid barely above minimum wage. I wasn't being picky anymore. I was being desperate. And desperation had a way of clarifying priorities. By morning, I'd submitted 17 applications. Ethan called around noon. "How are you holding up?" "I'm applying for jobs," I said, not looking up from my laptop. "A lot of jobs." "Good. What did your mom say about the Janelle situation?" I almost laughed. She said people make mistakes and Janelle will learn from this. Of course she did. Ethan's voice was dry. And what did you say? That I'm done being the family sacrifice. And she hasn't spoken to me since. The silent treatment was Mom's preferred method of showing displeasure. She'd used it when I was 16 and wanted to take art classes instead of accounting. She'd used it when I chose a design program over business school. She was using it now because I'd finally said what we both knew was true, that our family dynamic was built on my willingness to give up pieces of myself for everyone else's convenience. Maybe that's not a bad thing, Ethan said. Maybe you both need some space to figure out what comes next.
Around 2 p.m., Janelle appeared in my doorway without knocking. She'd clearly been crying, and her usual put-together appearance was replaced by sweatpants and tangled hair. "Can we talk?" she asked. "I'm busy," I said, not looking up from my laptop. "Please, Leah, I know you're mad, but—" "I'm not mad," I interrupted, finally meeting her eyes. Mad suggests this was unexpected. I'm disappointed in myself. What do you mean? I closed my laptop and turned to face her fully. I knew this would happen. Deep down, I knew you weren't ready for that job, but I convinced myself that family loyalty meant ignoring my instincts. Janelle's face crumpled. "That's not fair. I really tried." "No, you didn't. You tried to try, which isn't the same thing." I stood up, suddenly needing distance from her wounded expression. "You showed up late because you didn't plan ahead. You took personal calls because you didn't understand professional boundaries. You called in sick to go to the beach because you thought the job would just wait for you." "I made mistakes. You made choices," I corrected. "The same choices you've been making for years. The only difference is that this time, someone else paid the price for them." Janelle was quiet for a long moment, picking at her fingernails in the way she'd done since we were kids. "I know I messed up," she said finally, "but I don't understand why you're being so cruel about it." "Cruel?" The word hit me like a physical blow. "Janelle, I gave you my dream job. I called a woman I respected and lied to her face so you could have an opportunity you weren't qualified for. And when you destroyed it in 3 days, you acted like it was no big deal. If anyone's been cruel here, it's not me. I didn't ask you to give me the job. You manipulated me into it, with the crying and the eviction notice and the sob story about Uncle Ray. You knew exactly what buttons to push. That wasn't manipulation. That was my life falling apart." I stared at her, seeing clearly for the first time how different our versions of reality were. In her mind, she was the victim of circumstances, of bad luck, of other people's expectations. In mine, she was the architect of her own disasters, leaving other people to clean up the wreckage. "Your life has been falling apart for 11 years, and every time it does, you find someone to catch you. Mom, me, whatever boyfriend you're dating. You've never had to actually hit bottom because there's always someone willing to cushion the fall." "So you're saying I should have been homeless?" "I'm saying maybe if you'd been homeless, you would have learned to make better choices." The words came out harsher than I had intended, but I didn't take them back. I was done softening hard truths to protect other people's feelings. Janelle stood up abruptly. "I can't believe you're being like this. I thought we were family." "We are family, but that doesn't mean I have to sacrifice my future for your comfort." After she left, I sat in the quiet of my room and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Not happiness exactly, but the absence of the constant low-level anxiety that came from managing other people's emotions. Mom finally broke her silence that evening, appearing in my doorway with her arms crossed. "I think you owe your cousin an apology." "For what?" "For being unnecessarily harsh. She's going through a difficult time." "She's always going through a difficult time, Mom, and somehow it's always my job to make it easier." Mom's expression hardened. "That's what families do. They support each other." "No!"
I said, standing up to face her. That's what I do. I support everyone else. When was the last time anyone in this family sacrificed something for me? We sacrifice for you all the time. Name one time when someone in this family gave up something they wanted so I could have something I needed. Mom was quiet, her mouth opening and closing as she searched for an example that didn't exist.
You paid for my college, she said finally. Because you're my mother. That's not sacrifice, that's responsibility. I felt years of suppressed frustration bubbling to the surface. But when I wanted to take art classes in high school, we couldn't afford it. When I wanted to do a study abroad program, it was too expensive. When I wanted to move out after graduation, you guilt-tripped me into staying to help with bills. Those were practical decisions. Those were decisions that prioritized everyone else's comfort over my dreams. And now you want me to apologize to Janelle for being upset that she destroyed the first real opportunity I've had to build something for myself? Mom's voice rose. She made a mistake, Leah. People make mistakes. Stop calling it a mistake. A mistake is accidentally deleting a file or showing up to the wrong meeting. What Janelle did was a pattern of behavior that anyone could have predicted if they'd been paying attention. I can't believe how selfish you're being. Selfish? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. I've spent my entire life being unselfish. I've given up classes and opportunities and relationships because someone in this family needed something. And the one time I ask you to stop putting everyone else's needs ahead of mine, I'm selfish? Mom's face was flushed with anger. Fine, be selfish. See how far it gets you. She left, and I heard her door slam down the hall. I looked around my childhood bedroom, at the desk where I'd done homework for 12 years, at the walls I'd painted purple when I was 16 and never been allowed to change, at the window that looked out onto the same street I'd been staring at my entire life. For the first time in months, I could see a future that didn't involve this room, this house, this dynamic where my worth was measured by my willingness to disappear. I opened my laptop and continued applying for jobs. The next 2 weeks were a blur of applications, rejections, and the occasional interview that led nowhere. Without Mom speaking to me and Janelle avoiding me entirely, the house felt like a war zone where everyone was fighting in silence. I'd started eating breakfast before anyone else woke up and staying late at the library to avoid the oppressive atmosphere at home. It was during one of these library sessions that I got the call that changed everything. "Is this Leah Torius?" The voice was professional but warm. "Yes, this is Leah. This is David Park from Momentum Creative. I got your application for our junior designer position, and I have to say, your portfolio is impressive." My heart started racing. Momentum Creative was smaller than Sterling & Associates, but had a reputation for innovative work and treating their employees well. "Thank you," I managed. "I'd like to bring you in for an interview. Are you available tomorrow afternoon?" I was available immediately, but I tried to sound professional. "Tomorrow afternoon works perfectly." "Great. Oh, and Leah, I have to ask. I see you applied to Sterling & Associates recently. How did that go?" My stomach dropped. It didn't work out. "Their loss," David said simply. "See you tomorrow." That night, I told Ethan about the interview while we grabbed coffee near campus. "Momentum Creative? That's huge, Leah. They do all those campaigns for the environmental nonprofits, right?" "Among other things, their work is incredible." "Are you nervous about the Sterling situation coming up?" I stirred my coffee thoughtfully. "Weirdly, no. I think I'm ready to be honest about what happened." "Really?" "Really. I'm tired of protecting other people from the consequences of their actions." The interview the next day was everything my Sterling interview had been, but without the undercurrent of anxiety about whether I deserved to be there. David was in his early 30s with kind eyes and an easy manner that put me at ease. "So tell me about Sterling & Associates," he said after we'd discussed my portfolio. I took a deep breath. I was offered the position, but had to turn it down due to family circumstances. I recommended my cousin for the role, and she was hired but terminated after 3 days for attendance and performance issues. David raised his eyebrows. "That's honest." "I learned something important from that experience," I continued, "that my judgment about people's professional capabilities was clouded by personal relationships. It won't happen again." "What do you mean?"
I mean, I knew my cousin wasn't qualified for the position, but I let family pressure override my professional instincts. I take full responsibility for that recommendation. David was quiet for a moment. Can I ask why you turned down the Sterling position in the first place? Because my family convinced me that my cousin needed the opportunity more than I did. Because I've spent my whole life believing that being a good family member meant sacrificing my own goals for other people's convenience. And now? Now, I understand that helping people sometimes means letting them face the consequences of their choices instead of cushioning every fall. David smiled. I appreciate the honesty. In fact, it's exactly the kind of integrity we value here. He spent the next hour showing me around the office, introducing me to team members, and explaining their current projects. Everything about the place felt right. The collaborative atmosphere, the focus on meaningful work, the sense that people genuinely enjoyed being there. I'd like to offer you the position, David said as we returned to his office. Same salary range as Sterling, but with more opportunities for creative input and professional development. I stared at him. Really? Really? Your portfolio speaks for itself, and frankly, the way you handled the Sterling situation tells me you're someone who learns from mistakes and grows stronger. That's exactly what we're looking for. I accepted on the spot. Walking to my car after the interview, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Genuine excitement about my future. Not excitement tempered by family obligations or guilt, but pure anticipation for what I could build with my own skills and choices. I called Ethan first. Holy shit, Leah! You got it? I got it. I start Monday. This is incredible! We're celebrating tonight, and don't you dare say you can't afford it. Actually, I think I can afford it now. I drove home with a mixture of excitement and dread. The excitement was pure. I had a job, a real job, doing work I loved with people who valued integrity and growth. The dread was about sharing the news with my family, who hadn't spoken to me properly in 2 weeks. Mom was in the kitchen when I walked in, making dinner for one, a pointed reminder that I was persona non grata in my own home. I got a job, I announced. She looked up from the stove, her expression carefully neutral. Oh? Momentum Creative. I start Monday. For just a moment, her mask slipped, and I saw genuine pride flash across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by the polite distance she'd been maintaining. That's nice, she said, turning back to her cooking. Mom, I said, sitting down at the kitchen table, we need to talk. I don't think there's anything to discuss. I think there's everything to discuss. She sighed and turned off the burner, then sat across from me with her arms crossed. I know you think I was too hard on Janelle. I think you were cruel to someone who needed compassion. And I think you've been enabling someone who needs accountability. We stared at each other across the table, 23 years of accumulated frustration hanging between us. Janelle has had a difficult life, Mom said.
So have I. So have you. Difficulty doesn't excuse behavior, Mom. It explains it, but it doesn't excuse it. What do you want me to say, Leah? That I was wrong to ask you to help your cousin? I want you to say that you understand why it hurt to watch you celebrate her getting my job. I want you to acknowledge that asking me to sacrifice my future for her convenience wasn't fair to either of us. Mom was quiet for a long moment, her fingers drumming against the table. I thought I was teaching you about family loyalty, she said softly. You were teaching me that my dreams matter less than other people's needs. That's not what I meant, but that's what you did. I leaned forward, trying to make her understand. Every time you asked me to give up something so Janelle could have what she wanted, you taught me that my value was in what I could sacrifice, not what I could achieve. Tears started forming in Mom's eyes. I never wanted you to feel that way. But I did feel that way. I do feel that way. And now I'm trying to unlearn it. By being mean to Janelle? By setting boundaries. By refusing to enable behavior that hurts everyone involved, including her.
Mom wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I don't know how to help her without enabling her. Maybe the best way to help her is to stop rescuing her. Let her figure out how to solve her own problems. What if she can't? Then she'll learn or she won't, but either way, it won't be your fault or my responsibility. We sat in silence for a while, both of us processing years of family dynamics that we'd never examined directly. I am proud of you, Mom said finally, for getting the job, for standing up for yourself, for becoming the kind of person who knows her own worth. Thank you. But I'm also scared. If you stop taking care of everyone else, what happens to them? They learn to take care of themselves, or they don't, and they face the consequences. But either way, you stop carrying responsibility for grown adults who are capable of making their own choices. It's hard, Mom admitted, watching people you love struggle. It's harder watching them never learn to struggle productively because someone's always there to catch them. That evening, Janelle knocked on my door. She looked different, less polished, more uncertain, but also somehow more real than I had seen her in years. I heard about your job. Congratulations. Thank you. Can I ask you something? I nodded. When you said you manipulated me into giving me the Sterling job, were you right? The question surprised me with its directness. What do you think? She hesitated. I think I've gotten really good at making my problems other people's emergencies. I think I use tears in crisis to get what I want without really thinking about what it costs other people. It was the most self-aware thing I'd ever heard Janelle say. Yeah, I said softly. I think that's right. I don't know how to change that. Start by taking responsibility for your choices instead of blaming circumstances. Start by solving your own problems instead of expecting other people to fix them. Start by asking what you can give instead of what you can get. I looked at my cousin, really looked at her, and for the first time in years, I saw potential instead of problems. Now you figure out who you are when you're not in crisis, I said. And I figure out who I am when I'm not responsible for fixing everyone else. Can we still be family? We'll always be family, Janelle, but we're going to be a different kind of family now. After she left, I sat in my room and started planning my new life. I'd be moving out within the month, finding my own apartment, building my own career on my own terms. It was terrifying and exhilarating and completely mine. For the first time in my life, I was choosing myself, and it felt like coming home. I stood in the doorway of my new apartment, keys still warm in my palm, and felt something I'd never experienced before, the complete absence of guilt about making myself happy. The space was small, a one-bedroom in a converted warehouse 20 minutes from Momentum Creative, but it was entirely mine. No family photos I hadn't chosen, no furniture that carried the weight of other people's memories, no obligation to accommodate anyone else's needs. This is perfect, Ethan said, setting down the last box from his car. He'd insisted on helping me move, despite my protests that I could handle it myself. I was still learning to accept help that came without strings attached. It's mine, I said, and the word felt revolutionary. At 23, I was living independently for the first time in my life, supporting myself with work I loved, making decisions based on my own priorities rather than family obligations. The past 6 months at Momentum Creative had been a revelation. David Park had been true to his word about creative opportunities. I'd contributed to 3 major campaigns and been given increasing responsibility with each project. More importantly, I was working with people who valued integrity and professional growth over personal drama. Sarah Chen wants to grab coffee next week, I told Ethan as we unpacked kitchen supplies. She's thinking about recommending me for the art director position that's opening up. Art director? Leah, that's huge. 6 months ago, I was ready to give up design entirely. Now I'm being considered for leadership roles. What changed? I thought about that as I unwrapped coffee mugs, the first dishes I'd ever bought for myself. I stopped believing that my value came from what I could sacrifice for other people, started believing it came from what I could create. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "How's the move going? Do you need anything?" Our relationship had been slowly rebuilding, but it was different now, built on mutual respect rather than assumed obligation. Mom had started seeing a therapist to work through her own patterns of enabling, recognizing that her approach to family dynamics hadn't been healthy for anyone. "Going well," I texted back. "I'll call you later." Around noon, there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find Janelle holding a small potted plant and looking nervous. "Hi, I wanted to bring you a housewarming gift." She handed me the plant, a small succulent in a hand-painted pot she'd clearly made herself. "I know it's not much, but I wanted to give you something that represented new growth." "It's perfect," I said, genuinely touched. Janelle looked around the apartment with what felt like appreciation rather than envy. "This is beautiful, Leah. It's so you." "I owe you an apology, a real one. I owe you an apology for years of treating me like my personal safety net." In the months since the Sterling incident, Janelle had changed in fundamental ways. She carried herself differently, less like someone braced for disaster, more like someone actively building a life. "I've been thinking about patterns in therapy," she continued. "I think losing my dad made me terrified of being abandoned, so I created situations where people had to prove they wouldn't leave me. By creating crises they felt obligated to solve," I said, understanding flooding through me. "Exactly. If you were always rescuing me, you couldn't leave me. Except that kind of relationship isn't really love. It's dependency disguised as family loyalty." She'd surprised everyone by finally taking responsibility for her life. After hitting actual rock bottom, evicted, fired, facing reality that no one would rescue her, she'd gotten productively angry. She'd enrolled in community college, taken a retail job with tuition assistance, and started counseling to work through her abandonment issues.
"When did you figure this out?" I asked. "When I realized the Sterling job wasn't the first opportunity I'd taken from you. How many times did I have a crisis right before your important events?" The question hit me like a physical blow. My graduation party, canceled for Janelle's breakup. My college acceptance celebration, overshadowed by her job loss. My birthdays, consistently derailed by whatever drama was consuming her life. "I don't think it was conscious," Janelle said quickly. "But I think part of me was threatened by your success because it highlighted my failures. So I'd create situations where you had to focus on my problems instead." That's incredibly insightful. "Therapy is expensive but helpful," she smiled wryly. "I'm paying for it myself with money from my retail job that I've kept for 4 months now." "I'm proud of you," I said, meaning it completely. We talked for another hour, the most honest conversation we'd ever had. Janelle told me about her classes, her therapy insights, her plans to transfer to a 4-year university. I told her about my work, my growing confidence in building a life on my own terms. "There's something else," Janelle said as she prepared to leave. "I want to fix the damage I did to your professional reputation." She showed me a draft email to Ms. Alvarez, a straightforward apology taking full responsibility for the Sterling disaster and making clear that I'd acted in good faith based on false information. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do, because accountability matters, even when it's uncomfortable." That evening, Ethan returned with Chinese takeout, and we sat on my bare living room floor planning furniture arrangements. "This feels like a celebration," he said, raising his beer bottle. "What are we celebrating?" "You, finally choosing yourself, finally building a life that's actually yours. It's weird. For so long, I defined myself by my willingness to sacrifice for others. Now I have to figure out who I am when I'm not constantly putting everyone else first." "Who do you think you are?" I considered seriously.
Someone who creates things. Someone who solves problems, but my own problems, not just other people's. Someone who values honesty over harmony. Someone who knows her own worth. Someone who's still learning her own worth, but committed to the process. My phone rang. Sarah Chen from work. Hey, Leah. I hope it's okay that I'm calling on a weekend, but I wanted to give you a heads up about Monday's meeting. Weekend calls from supervisors rarely brought good news. David wants to formally announce the art director position, but between you and me, the job is yours if you want it. Your work on the environmental campaign was exactly the innovative thinking we need in leadership. I nearly dropped the phone. Are you serious? Dead serious. David was impressed by how you handled client feedback, your mentoring of interns, and your overall professional growth. You've become someone people want to work with and learn from. After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. Good news? Ethan asked. I think I'm about to become an art director. That's incredible. A year ago, I was ready to give up my career because I thought family loyalty meant self-sacrifice. Now I'm being promoted because I've learned to value my own contributions. What's the first thing you'll do as art director? Create an environment where people can do their best work without navigating personal drama, where talent is rewarded and integrity matters more than politics. Later that night, I stood at my bedroom window, looking out at the city lights, thinking about Janelle's visit, the promotion opportunity, the new life I was building one decision at a time. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Proud of you for everything you've accomplished. Love you. I smiled and texted back, love you too. See you Sunday. Sunday dinner would be different now. Optional instead of obligatory. Collaborative instead of crisis-driven. Focused on connection rather than rescue. It would be better because we were all healthier people who'd learned that love didn't require self-sacrifice. The next morning, I woke up in my own apartment, in my own bed, surrounded by the life I was building for myself. I made coffee in my own kitchen and got ready for work without having to navigate anyone else's mood or crisis. Walking into Momentum Creative that Monday felt different. I wasn't just an employee anymore. I was about to become a leader. Someone responsible for creating the kind of work environment I'd always wanted to be part of. David's announcement about the art director position was met with enthusiasm from the team, and when he mentioned that I'd be taking on the role, the applause felt genuine. I'm looking forward to learning from you, said Marcus, one of the junior designers. Your approach to client feedback has really helped me think differently. We're going to learn from each other, I corrected. Good leadership is collaborative. That afternoon, I called Mom to share the news. Oh, honey, that's wonderful, she said, genuine pride in her voice. Art director at 23? That's incredible. It feels incredible. Scary, but incredible. I'm so proud of how you've built this life for yourself. I know I didn't always understand what you were trying to achieve, but watching you now, I can see that you were right to prioritize your own growth. After hanging up, I sat in my new office and reflected on the journey that had brought me here. 6 months ago, I'd believed that putting myself first was selfish, that family loyalty required endless sacrifice, that my worth was measured by my willingness to give up pieces of myself for others. Now, I understood the opposite was true. Taking care of yourself made you better able to care for others. Setting boundaries created healthier relationships. Choosing your own path inspired others to find theirs. I was 23, living in my own apartment, leading a creative team at a company I respected, maintaining relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation. For the first time, I was choosing myself consistently, and instead of losing family and friends, I was gaining deeper, more authentic connections. That evening, I sat in my apartment and started planning the kind of leader I wanted to be. Someone who created opportunities for others without sacrificing herself. Someone who valued honesty and integrity over politics and manipulation. Someone who understood that the best way to help people succeed was to model what success built on authentic values looked like. It turned out that knowing your own worth wasn't selfish. It was revolutionary. And I was just getting started.